What time is it? Let me check my watch. Oh, it's bone o'clock. In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie Schwartz.
And I'm Katelyn Hart. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Katelyn.
Oh boy, you're just gonna start out with a bang. Yeah. Hi, we're doing a birthday record. I'm in my pajamas. My birthday present was a snowstorm. So not only is the pandemic going on, but there's a snowstorm that is now melting. But just decided to stay inside today.
Yeah, it absolutely dumped on Seattle, but I think it was an atmospheric birthday present to you.
Yeah, love it. I was born in a snowstorm, so my parents reminded me in a phone call today.
Do you want to tell that story?
You like that
really
story?
Quickly? Yes, I love this.
I told Sophie this morning. So I was born born in a snowstorm, like I said, and I was born a little bit early and I was jaundiced. So I was a little bit yellow and you have to wear the lights and stuff.
Aww.
No big deal. I turned out fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, I had to be taken back to the doctor to get like blood work done like every day in the snowstorm. And my parents were like, can we cancel? And they were like, no, you can't cancel, that kind of thing. So we gotta go. They're driving through the snow to get to the doctor, and they see hobbling alongside the car my 14-year-old brother who's hurt himself. I think sledding, is how the story goes. I don't know. As I said, I was a newborn baby when this happened. So, they were going to the doctor anyway, so they scooped up my brother and off we went.
I just love the double trip to the hospital. Like, we were going anyway, get on in here.
Yeah, I guess everybody on board the hospital car train. I don't know. That's an ambulance, I guess.
Yes, the hospital car train. I don't know. They used to transport people. We'll talk about this probably if.
Oh yes, please.
When we have my brother on, but that the funeral homes used to be the ones who would take people to the hospital in hearses, so that if they kick the bucket,
they're just already in the car. I think there were other logistical reasons other than the big car, but yes, that is scary to me.
But that's kind of part of why as well. Like a hearse was like the only kind of car that had room for someone to lie down in it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, not very tall.
Well,
they're not getting in themselves. Anyway.
But after a little personal history and a little EMT history, that's not what we're supposed to be focusing on today. Today, we're focusing on Black history because it's Black History Month.
Yeah.
Every month is Black History Month. I'm just going to go ahead and say that there has not been a month that's gone by without Black history occurring and being real. So just putting that out there.
Yes, we're not just going to do Black stories in this episode. We plan to do more episodes like this and with people of color featured. It's such a weird thing because and then there's Women's History Month next month, which is also there's always this exact same thing that you said. There's always women making history, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. It's anyway, I think it's important to do this topic. I'm excited to do this topic. I'm excited to hear what you're going to tell me about.
Yeah, just kind of any excuse to highlight Black stories and Black excellence is cool with me, honestly. And I kind of wanted to start off with something that's not my main story, but I found it during my research and I thought that I would share it with you because I thought it would be something fun for you to think about while you're at work, actually. Because Katelyn works at a doctor's office that does LASIK and cataract removal. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about Dr. Patricia Era Bath, who is a scientist and inventor of the laser phaco probe that removes cataracts.
Oh no. The probe. What year was this?
I'll tell you what year.
Okay.
So Dr. Patricia Bath is a pioneer of ophthalmology, inventor, and an academic who's known for inventing a tool and a procedure for the removal of cataracts using a laser beam called the laser phaco probe. Did you already know about this probe?
No. I want you to continue and then I can kind of very briefly tell you how cataracts are removed now. But I'm curious how this probe works.
Cool. Also, this is from an article from interestingengineering.com by Susan Fortane.
Oh.
So Dr. Patricia was the daughter of the first African-American motorman to work for the New York City subway system and a mother who was a domestic worker who saved all of her money for her children's education. Patricia was born in 1942 in Harlem, New York. She's always been interested in science, and her mother bought her a chemistry set when she was younger to kind of boost her interest in science. And she's always been a curious child. When she was a medical student, she was involved in the civil rights movement and was very influenced by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And in 1973, Patricia became the first African American to complete a residency in ophthalmology, which is huge.
Yeah.
And then a year after that, Dr. Bath became the first female to be appointed to the faculty of the University of California at Los Angeles School of Medicine, Jules Stein Eye Institute. So again, like smashing barriers left, right, and center. And then in 1983, Dr. Bath became the first woman to chair an ophthalmology residency program in the United States. So she's like not done. She's like, if there's glass ceilings, I'm gonna punch through them and cover my eyes. But it took her several years of working long hours in her lab until like 2, 3 in the morning to develop this invention that we're talking about. But finally in 1985, the laser phaco probe finally began to work and it increased the accuracy of cataract surgery. And then on December 1986, Dr. Bath filed a patent for her discovery, becoming the first African-American female doctor to receive a medical patent.
Damn.
So she just keeps kicking ass.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I just thought that I would tell you about her just briefly because
that's very relevant. Yeah. Oh, that's so cataract surgery is something that I think about all day long, every day. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean,
it does happen a lot in my office. That's for sure. Now they either the surgeon makes an incision or a laser makes an incision and they use, I believe, ultrasound to break up the cataract. I know. Sophie looks horrified. And then they replace the lens with an artificial lens. Because if they didn't put a lens back in your eye couldn't like focus.
Oh, that's nuts. Those must have been some gnarly experimental surgeries.
I don't even want to think about what it was like to be an early cataract surgery patient. And now it's super, super routine. Like it's one of the easiest surgeries to get. People always say, I don't say this really, but say it's easy as going to the dentist. It's like, well, my anxiety doesn't allow for that, but sure.
Like depends on how easy you think going to the dentist is.
Yeah. It's like, maybe maybe cut this out if I have coworkers listening. No, just kidding. Hi. Yeah.
Katelyn's coworkers.
Hi, cataracts. Everybody gets them. That's a little known thing, I feel like. And I'm gonna just drop some wisdom on your face right now. Everybody gets cataracts if you live long enough. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do.
Or where you come from or what you believe. Cataracts are coming for you.
They are universal and they are coming for you. Amen.
Amen. But so, yeah, I just wanted to start off with that cool thing that I found, because as soon as I read about her, I was like, Kayla would think, A, this woman kicks so much ass, and B, it'll give you like you'll think about something new when you're watching people get their eyeballs blasted.
Yeah, what was her name again?
Dr. Patricia Bath.
Patricia Bath. Okay, good to know.
Yeah. We love Dr. Patricia. And to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Dr. Patricia Bath and the class of 1968 graduation from Howard University College of Medicine, the Howard University Medical Alumni Association honored Bath by endowing the Patricia E. Bath MD Scholarship for female medical students.
Nice. That's
so
great.
there's a scholarship in her name, and that will come back into play later as I move into my next story.
Okay. Is this
this is my main story?
Okay. I was like, are we getting like a bonanza type, like rapid fire? What are we doing here? What am I about to jump into with you?
There's just a connection about scholarships. Between these two women, these two really brilliant, powerful Black women. So my main story, because that was just a teaser, just a fun cool person that
you got my attention. Like, what's next?
I've grabbed you, and now we're going to talk about, this is a person who I learned about maybe a year or two ago, and whose life I've been fascinated by. Her name is Henrietta Smith Bowers Duterte. I think that's how it's pronounced. And she is the first female mortician in the United States.
So cool. I can't wait.
So my sources for this were, of course, Wikipedia, blackpast.org, coloredconventions.org, amsterdamnews.com, and damjoan.com. So Henrietta Smith Bowers Duterte, the first female undertaker in the nation, was born free in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1817. So born into a very tumultuous time, but still was born to a free, affluent family in Philadelphia. She was one of 13 children born in 1817 to John Bowers and Henrietta Smith Bowers. She had many prominent brothers and sisters, including entrepreneur, organist, and abolitionist John C. Bowers and Thomas Bowers, who was a renowned opera singer who was known as, quote, the Colored Mario, which I'm not sure who Mario is, but
yeah. Because I don't think it would be the video game Mario. So
No, we're a little far off from that now. But
I don't like this nickname, but continue.
I don't like it either. I bet he's better than Mario. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna put that out there.
Better than the video game Mario, you mean?
I mean, at opera singing, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I meant then his contemporary Mario, to which he is compared.
Gotcha. I don't know where. Please continue. I got lost in a video game thread of consciousness. Continue.
That's all right. So the Bowers family was initially from Baltimore, Maryland, but they settled in Philadelphia around 1810. Henrietta's father became the sexton of the African Episcopal Church of St. Thomas. So a man of faith, brought up with a strong faith background. And Bowers grew up in Philadelphia's 7th Ward, which was a long, narrow strip in the center of the city that was home to the city's most prominent African-American neighborhood. And the 7th Ward was kind of brought into the popular consciousness when it was written about by scholar and activist W.E.B. Du Bois, who wrote The Philadelphia Negro, which is the nation's first major study of Black urban life. So she lived in this extremely prominent neighborhood where there was a lot of Black culture, where W.E.B. Du Bois was writing about life and bringing to light the problems and the everyday routines of Black Americans at the time.
Yeah.
As she grew up, she began to be known for her fashionable attire.
Yes,
And
we love this.
we love this. We love a woman who is both an activist and a fashionista. And she became a career as a tailor. And she was known for like her really beautiful capes and like very unique designs. And so everyone kind of wanted her outfits.
My quick question is, when are capes gonna come back into style?
You have to make it happen for yourself.
I guess.
I mean,
okay.
On the quickest diversion, style is becoming very baggy and very formless at the moment. So I feel like capes are not short behind.
Maybe if you call it like a wearable blanket, but it's really a cape.
But it's really a cape. All right, back to my girl. So in 1853, she married Francis A. Duterte, a Haitian American owner of an undertaking business. Unfortunately, they had several children, but none of them lived past infancy, which is really upsetting. Yeah. But they filled their lives with activism. Francis Duterte was a member of the Moral Reform Retreat, a local organization which supported the abolition of slavery and equal rights for women. So she's already beginning to run in these circles of activism, and she was already an abolitionist, but she's becoming connected with abolitionist networks. So the Dutertes were a prominent and well-connected Philadelphia family, like I said, who exemplified the values of education and hard work that was kind of the symbol of the Black middle class at the time. They wanted to uphold this life where they worked hard, worked honestly, and had complete independence. Such things that came along with their status included political activism, and in 1855, Francis Duterte participated in the National Colored Convention as a delegate. So he's really doing a lot of work. So although in this time, women often would learn their husband's trade, they wouldn't often participate in the business aspect of things. That was really rare. So when Francis died of a sudden illness in 1858, our girl Henrietta kind of had no choice but to defy gender roles and take over the undertaking business.
Yeah, that's a big thing that they they didn't have children, but what else is she going to do to support herself?
I mean, nothing. She's basically at this time, she is a widow. She's childless. You know, she has a good amount of money and she has this business. Why not keep it up, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wow.
So in doing this, she became the first woman undertaker in the city and the first woman undertaker in the nation.
Damn.
Which is like insane. Yeah. And she conducted business under her own name, which is badass.
Good.
Because there was, you know, in this time, it was common for like, if you were a woman writer, you would maybe use a male name. If you were a woman business owner, you might operate under a different name to kind of bring, you know, what they would consider legitimacy, what we would consider sexism.
Yeah.
But she operated under her own name. She did not give a fucking shit.
Good.
And there's actually a surviving document in the library, in the Library Company of Philadelphia, that has a heading on it that says, quote, to H.S. Duterte, Doctor, General Furnishing Undertaker, address number 838 Lombard Street. So we have firsthand primary source evidence that this was her business in name now. Mm-hmm. And she was extremely successful in her business. And one of the things that she was known for was being very prompt and sympathetic. So she was really fast, which was extremely important because this is before the advent of modern embalming. Like modern embalming doesn't really come into play in the United States until the Civil War. So this is pre-Civil War, and it's important for you to be fast because people start decaying.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was also extremely sympathetic, and she would help people, rich or poor, black or white. She would serve anyone who needed her help.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Which is amazing in that time.
Yeah.
So in 1860, it was a time where death rituals were very much seen as not suitable for women, which is funny because I feel like I've read in the early parts of the formation of our nation, a lot of the time it was women dealing with the dead body. So I wonder where this flipped. Maybe for high class women is what that really means.
Yeah, I don't know, because I was just thinking that.
Yeah.
You said that last week you said ancient Romans, the men weren't allowed to touch their dead family members, but the women were. So that's an interesting shift.
I mean, I think what they're really saying is like women of higher classes, because I'm not sure. We'll check on
anyway.
that.
Yeah,
we'll check on that. But basically, to this end, Duterte was the only female undertaking among. I thought it was funny that it's McElroy's Philadelphia City Directory that listed 63 professional undertakers. So 1/63 of the undertakers were women.
Yeah.
Were Black women.
Okay. Good.
But as I'm leading up to and connecting with all her philanthropy and her activism, Duterte did not just undertake. She also was a stop on the Underground Railroad. So Philadelphia was a major part of the Metropolitan Corridor, which was a network of abolitionist communities and Black activists who were getting people out of slave states. And so most of the people who were escaping enslavement were coming from Maryland, Delaware, and Virginia. And so she was kind of perfectly positioned to help in the aid of people escaping enslavement, because she would hide runaways in coffins and disguise them as mourners. And she would have people walk right through the streets along with the coffin with a person just right inside there. Yep. And it's just the best. It's the best disguise. Who's going to run up and be like, hey, what's in there?
Yeah, no, you're not going to stop a funeral. Most likely. I think if you can avoid it, you're going to keep a funeral going.
I mean, although if you're someone who's hunting down escaped slaves and you're the worst scum of the earth, terrible piece of shit fucking motherfucker, you might interrupt a funeral. But I don't think
their boundaries probably weren't very good, but yeah, that's a really good disguise. Yeah.
And like I said, Philadelphia was kind of this perfect position for people to kind of use as a gateway to like the free North. And there were a couple of interesting escape stories that I kind of read that were related to her. This was before her husband's death, but a man named Henry Box Brown had shipped himself in a wooden box from Virginia to abolitionists in Philadelphia, which is,
I've heard of this, yeah,
which is just amazing. Like,
and he survived, right?
Oh yeah,
amazing.
He was fine. And then, so that was kind of my favorite of the ones that I found, other than this man and woman, Ellen and William Craft, who were from Virginia. This was in 1848. Ellen was a woman who had been enslaved, and she was of mixed race, but she passed herself off as a wealthy white man traveling with her slave, which William played. So
great.
Very interesting ways of escaping. But I just love that Henrietta was like, what do I have? What can I use to help my cause? I'm going to hide people in coffins and in funeral processions.
Yeah.
And as well as helping people escape enslavement, she was also a generous supporter of the Black community in Philadelphia through her philanthropy. She raised funds to pay the pastor's salary at the African Episcopal Church of St. Thomas, which was the first African American Episcopal church in the nation. It was founded in 1792. So old church.
Oldie but a goodie.
Oldie but a goodie. She also helped fund Stephen Smith's Philadelphia Home for Aged and Infirmed Colored Persons. And the Freemen's Aid Society, which was created after the Civil War to provide assistance to formerly enslaved people in Tennessee. So her whole thing is that she is amassing wealth that she is giving back to her community.
Wow.
So she passed away in Philadelphia in 1903, at the age of 83. But this was really interesting. Also in 1903, Register of Deaths in the city of Philadelphia had Duterte listed as an undertaker for a young Black man who had died just 2 days before her own death. So she was undertaking like almost up to the day she died.
Wow.
Which is like an insane dedication.
What did she die of, did you say?
Old age. She was 83,
yeah.
in 1903.
You're
in 1903.
working?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That just sunk in for me. Oh my God.
She worked like until the day she died.
No,
like,
thank you.
Helping people who needed it. And her mortuary business became one of Philadelphia's most successful Black businesses, taking in roughly $8,000 a year, which I didn't look this up for 2020, but in this article, it said that in 2018, that would be the equivalent of about $200,000 a year. So a pretty successful business. And when she died, her estate included her mortuary, hearses, carriages, and 4 cemetery lots and a few different homes. So
wow.
And she gave because she had no children, she gave her business and all her cool shit to her nephew, who also operated the business until his death in 1927. And she is buried in the historic Eden Cemetery in Collingdale, Pennsylvania. And Eden is kind of interesting. This cemetery, I looked into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cemetery that was created when 2 other historically Black cemeteries were condemned after not being upkept well enough. So they formed this coalition to move all of those, to disinter all of those people and bring them to one central spot. And they actually had to hold the first internment. Sophie, can you talk? They had to hold the first internment at the cemetery after nightfall because local white protesters had blocked the cemetery entrance all day.
Go fuck yourselves.
Like, seriously? Like, all of these people are getting a new resting place where they can rest for eternity without being neglected. And you're gonna cause fucking bullshit. It's
even in death, it's never enough. Oh God.
Yeah.
Wow.
But looping back to how I started my story, Community College of Baltimore County has partnered with the nonprofit, the Order of the Good Death, to raise funds for students in their mortuary science program in honor of Harriet Duterte. So she also has a scholarship.
Nice.
And I am planning on making a donation to that scholarship myself later today.
Let's make one. Let's make one on behalf of the pod.
Yeah, and I invite anyone who's listening to this to donate to Dr. Patricia Bath's scholarship or to the Henrietta Duterte scholarship.
Yeah, let's get we'll get website links for those and put them in the show notes.
Yeah, because I think, these 2 women were both outstanding in their fields of, both medicine and of undertaking. And I think we need to celebrate groundbreaking Black women and provide the funds for them to fucking do it.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Good job, Soph.
Thank you.
Nice. We were kind of on a similar track in preparing for this episode. I'm going to tell you about a very similar time period. So maybe in a future episode featuring Black stories, we will feature current Black stories. So with this episode, I kind of wanted to, in a way, right a wrong that I feel was done in my education. I knew about this person in passing, but I feel like I've never been able to grasp the full awesomeness of Harriet Tubman.
Fuck yeah,
until-
Harriet Tubman.
Until I've done this research, and like I was trying to think like, okay, so I know we didn't really talk about Harriet Tubman, or at least it didn't stick with me from school. What stories of Black people do I really remember sticking with me? And the one I particularly remember is the story of Ruby Bridges, the girl who went to school during integration. And there's all those pictures of her walking into the school with armed guards and old white men and women trying to keep her out. And did you know, I looked this up because I was just curious. She's only 66 years old right now.
Yeah, that was so recent.
Was not that long ago. Anyway, so that was a story that I can remember vividly. Like we had this, I believe it was an assembly for women's history, and they would have like different faculty members or parents or whatever dress up as famous women in history and give an assembly about and talk about their lives. And I remember my good friend at the time, Christina, was asked to be Ruby Bridges because she was like the only Black girl in our school. And so I remember learning a lot about, yeah. In retrospect, like a little problematic. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also it made an impression on me, little white girl who had not a care in the world and couldn't tell you a goddamn thing about white privilege, even if you pointed it out to her face. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Suffice it to say, I didn't know very much about Harriet Tubman. I knew she was involved with the Underground Railroad, but it's just so much more than that. Her story is so much more than that. So I don't really need to justify why I'm talking about Harriet Tubman today, but there you go.
No one ever needs to justify to me why they're talking about Harriet Tubman.
No. My sources are battlefields.org. Okay.
Yeah.
An article from Britannica, harriettubman.org, a section from americaslibrary.gov, a couple articles from National Geographic, and an article from USA Today. So Harriet Tubman was not born Harriet Tubman. Her name was Araminta Ross, and she was born into slavery in Maryland sometime in, they think, 1820, maybe earlier. Like it sounds like her date of birth is questionable. So we're not quite sure, but she was nicknamed Minty by her parents, which is the cutest name I've ever, because her full name was Araminta, so she went by Minty.
Those are both beautiful. Araminta is a beautiful name.
Yeah, maybe I'm just partial because mint is my favorite flavor.
Little Minty.
Yeah, but like I said, she was born into slavery. I read somewhere that when she was 5, she was tasked with taking care of a baby and was obviously bad at that because she was 5 and got in trouble. So she was just kind of passed around to various masters who were cruel and abusive. But she actually, this is a quote, Tubman preferred the harsh physical work in the plantation rather than doing domestic work and being subjected to a white woman.
I mean, yeah.
Yep.
So
she's around 12 years old. She's becoming more in touch with her Christian faith. And one day she is in a grocery store where she spots, I don't know how she knows this, but there's a fugitive slave in the grocery store and he's about to get caught. And she stands in the doorway and blocks, they're called overseers. She blocks the overseer's way so that the slave can escape. And this overseer picks up this heavy metal like thing and throws it at the slave, but actually hits Minty in the face.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's so fucked up.
It takes her months to recover from this injury. She is just never really the same. She, quote, would fall asleep anywhere and it was impossible to wake her up. Her sleeping spells would come to her without warning. She also started having vivid dreams related to her religiosity.
Ooh.
So somebody threw a heavy metal thing at her and she had a head injury. And her master actually tried to sell her, but couldn't find a buyer because of her health, which is disgusting.
Wow.
I know.
Fucking wow.
Yeah. She actually, later in life, she had surgery to help her alleviate symptoms of the injury. And she died of old age. So kudos to her for having brain surgery at this time.
Yeah, shit.
I wouldn't be interested. I can tell you right now.
No. That's a hard pass for me.
No.
Brain surgery in the 1800s? No, thank you.
In 1840, Minty's father was freed as a result of some piece of the master's will, but they continued to work for the former owner's family. And even though Minty and her mother and her siblings were supposed to be freed, for some reason this was just ignored and they continued to be enslaved. Like I said, it sounds like one of the masters was trying to sell her off. She got married in 1844 to a free Black man named John Tubman. And at this point, she changes her first name to Harriet. So now she's Harriet Tubman. So, yeah, put your little sound effect in here. So again, in 1849, she decides enough is enough. I guess she hears that she's still going to be sold. I'm not sure if this was just an ongoing threat or if this just happened once. It's kind of unclear. The timeline kind of jumps all around at this point. But she flees to Philadelphia. She actually gets help from the Underground Railroad. Hey. She leaves behind her husband, John. John refused to leave, I guess. She leaves behind her parents and her siblings. At this point, she's in Philadelphia. She comes back in December 1850, where she gets her sister or maybe her niece, I've read both in different sources, and her 2 children to freedom. And so this is the first of many trips. Some sources say 19 total trips that she would take to lead family members and other enslaved people to freedom. Here's a crazy story. Well, it's one of the crazy stories. On one of her trips, she contacted John, her husband, and was like, hey, one more shot. Do you want to come to freedom with me? And the fucker had been remarried and wanted to stay in Maryland. So thanks.
Well, okay then.
All right. Bye then. That must have sucked.
Yeah, well, she didn't fucking need him.
There was a lot going on. So there was more shit to worry about, clearly. But I just thought that was, an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, I was going to say, Harriet Tubman sounds incredibly busy. I don't know if she's got time for this guy.
Yeah, exactly. So over the course of about 11 years, she makes upwards, they're not really sure how many trips. Like I said, some say 19 trips. And she gets somewhere between 70 and 300 people to freedom, depending on what sources you read. But a lot of people. And I don't think there would be any way of keeping track of those numbers, of course. Like they weren't keeping records of these things. So
no, because if they kept records of these things, they'd be fucked.
That's not going to work. So she had quite the reputation on the Underground Railroad. If anybody was, scared on the Underground Railroad, oh, you're scared? She would allegedly, she would threaten them with her gun and say, quote, you'll be free or die.
Well, she's serious about her work.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it's honestly, at that point, it's too dangerous to have somebody off on their own trying to go back. They'd probably get caught. So
yeah, you're safer. I would have to say you're safer with the group, right?
I mean, it's all bad. It's all a horrible situation. All bad. And yeah, but she was also, just keep in mind, this is a woman who had no education. She couldn't read, but she was strategic. She would run these raids on Saturday nights because Sunday was a day of rest, so they wouldn't be noticed, or it wouldn't be noticed that they were missing. And then the papers wouldn't get a hold of the news until Monday. So by the time they've advertised in the papers that these slaves are missing, they've already got a 2-day head start.
That's so smart.
Mm-hmm. She becomes known as the Moses of her people, and it is said that she never lost a person on the Underground Railroad.
That's insane.
Mm-hmm. So on one of the sources that I was reading about, it went into a little bit of detail about the Underground Railroad, which of course I knew what it was, but again, I think my education failed me just a little bit. Either that or I just kind of forgot about these these topics in school, but I just don't remember talking about this that much. So codes were a big part of the Underground Railroad. If they wrote letters, they would contain codes just in case the letter was intercepted by white people. But because most slaves were illiterate, they would do a lot of the signaling with songs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because slaves were actually encouraged by some of their masters to sing these spiritual songs. And they would use those, they'd be singing, but they'd be telling people how to escape using biblical references or analogies, things like that.
That's so cool. That's so smart.
So smart. I had no idea. And one of Harriet's last missions to get slaves out was to get her parents out. And she was successful in doing that. They were elderly at this point and they couldn't walk very long distances. Quote, she improvised a carriage, how? And managed to transport them to Canada.
Oh my God, Harriet motherfucking Tubman.
I need more information.
Improvised a carriage. I'm sorry. I would love to see that.
I've taken an improv class. What does that mean for me?
Well, shouting yes and into the darkness doesn't make a carriage appear.
No. It's also, this is sad. She did actually do, in one of her final trips, she tried to get one of her sisters and her two nieces and nephews, but the sister had already died and she couldn't find her nieces and nephews, unfortunately. And just to keep in mind, I probably should have said this at the top. Anyway, the 1850 fugitive slave law was still totally in effect at this time. So if she had been caught on any of these missions, she would have faced, quote, physical punishment and been sold back into slavery in the Deep South. So she was risking life and limb, and she did it over and over and over and over. It's really inspirational.
Yeah, she had the courage to do it herself, and she had the courage and the drive to help others, which is what makes her such a fucking badass. And she had this head injury that affected her for her whole life.
Yeah, and yet she was able to accomplish all of that. And I'm not done. I'm not even halfway done.
Yes.
During the Civil War, quote, Tubman worked for the Union Army as a nurse, a cook, and a spy. Did you know that?
I do know a couple of things about Harriet Tubman.
Okay.
So I did know she was a spy, and that's my favorite thing about her.
Well,
Continue.
Hey, listener, on the off chance that you had a high school experience that matched mine a little bit, are you surprised to know that? Tell me now. Okay.
Yes, I'm very surprised. Tell me
couldn't
more.
have just played along.
I'm
No.
sorry. Ask me again. I'll play along now.
Sophie,
was she a spy?
No, wait. This is ruined. Anyway, so she obviously, because of her experience going back and forth, getting people on the Underground Railroad, she knew the terrain very well. She was able to recruit former slaves to be spies with her, basically. And there were more former slaves that were spies than I think I had ever considered. White Confederates, quote, devalued their intelligence, which doesn't take a genius to figure out why. The answer is racism. So they would overhear things that would be really helpful for the Union, and the Confederate soldiers wouldn't have a clue that they had released this information because they didn't think the Black person would be listening or spying,
You dumb racist piece of shit. You gave me everything I need to know.
Yeah, exactly. Love it.
I love it.
So some of the things that they were able to help with, spies were able to find out where Confederate troops had dropped barrels filled with gunpowder in rivers to attack Union boats. So that was very helpful. They knew where to avoid so they wouldn't get exploded.
Yeah, fuck your barrels.
And at this point, we're coming up on 1863. Harriet Tubman is actually very well known. So this becomes more and more dangerous for her as time goes on because more and more people know who she is. I think there were people had I can't remember what my source was for this, but somewhere it said that overall the rewards for her capture were up to like $40,000 somewhere.
Oh,
Don't quote me on that though. So in 1863, she does something that if you know that she was involved in the Civil War, this is what she's most known for. She leads soldiers along with Colonel James Montgomery to raid rice plantations across the Combahee River in South Carolina. So in the dead of night, they creep in and they set fire to the buildings, they take down bridges, and they free just a fuck ton of slaves on these plantations in South Carolina.
Have you ever seen, there's an amazing drunk history about this.
No, I haven't.
No, you should watch it. And Octavia Spencer plays
oh my God.
Fucking Harriet Tubman.
Okay, no wonder you know about this. You love
I love drunk history.
Fair.
But there's just this great scene where she's just running around lighting shit on fire, and it's just what I'm thinking about right now, and I love it.
So at first, the slaves that saw what was going on were hiding, they were afraid. And then when they saw Black troops and they saw Harriet Tubman on the boats, they started running and trying to get on the boats to get to freedom. And their overseers were pretty much helpless to stop this mass exodus. And so they got a lot of people. I don't have the exact figure, but they got a lot of people to freedom that night.
Damn, that's so fucking badass. I love that she was a fucking general. Like,
yeah, the only, as far as I can tell, and write in if I'm wrong about this, the only Black woman to ever lead any kind of military operation in the Civil War.
Yeah, she kicks ass.
And she's not done. She's still not done, motherfuckers.
Fuck.
Of course she was a nurse during the war. Of course. Nurses are the toughest people that exist.
Yeah. Shout out to my mommy.
Yeah. So she worked as a nurse during the war as well. It was a story about her trying to help. All these people were dying from dysentery. And there's this story that she went out into the woods and found water lilies and geranium and boiled everything up and gave it to a man who was dying and saved his life. Who knows? That could have happened. I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, people have tried some wild stuff in medicine.
Yeah. And even though everybody fucking at the time knew that she was involved in the military, it took like 30 years for her to get a pension. She kept it kept getting denied. There was another source that said for her wartime service, quote, Tubman was paid so little that she had to support herself by selling homemade baked goods. Are you fucking kidding me?
You're a war
hero and you're making cookies.
She's a veteran and she's having a fucking bake sale to support herself. It's not right.
Okay, so the war ends and Harriet Tubman goes to Auburn, New York to be part of the support system for her elderly parents who are still alive. Her dad dies in 1871 and her mother dies in 1880. I just love this quote, so I'm going to read this whole section. Quote, Tubman was a philanthropist who provided to those who sought her help. She left the door of her residence at South Street open for those who needed shelter and food. For years, freed slaves came and went when they were ready to move on. She took care of all their needs, even though she was penniless. She supported herself and those she sheltered by selling produce from her garden, taking in donations of food, and asking friends for loans. She also raised pigs in her backyard. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
In 1869, she gets married again to Nelson Davis. He was apparently looking for shelter in her home, which is why I kind of read that. And he was a brick maker. They adopted a girl in 1874 named Gertie, which is so cute. Gertie. I love the name Gertie.
Yes.
Hey, come back, Gertie, please.
Yes.
And her husband of 20 years had tuberculosis. So Harriet was mostly in charge of the money and all the finances and everything. Money and finances are the same. And Harriet Tubman was, of course, a big supporter of the rights of women and women's suffrage. She had friends who had supported her during her time on the Underground Railroad, and those were people that were leaders of the women's rights movement. So, quote, she toured New York, Boston, and Philadelphia to speak in favor of women's suffrage rights. She also had a particular soft spot for the elderly and the social services for the elderly, particularly because so many elderly people just weren't being taken care of at that point and they have no way to make a living. So she acquired 25 acres of land next to her property in an auction. And then in 1903, she donated the property to a church with the condition that it be maintained as a home for the elderly. 5 years later, this dream became a reality. And in 1908, the Harriet Tubman home was opened, and Tubman was the guest of honor in the opening celebration. She also lived out the rest of her days there from 1911 to her death in 1913. She was surrounded by family and friends and buried with military honors at Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn, New York.
Well, at least they honored her. At least they did the bare minimum. They weren't going to fucking pay her.
Yeah, there was something when her second husband, when Nelson Davis died, she started getting money because she was a widow, a veteran's widow. So she got money for that before she got money for her own military service, as I think was what that said somewhere, which is just the biggest slap in the fucking face.
Yeah, it's here's your husband's pension. Still waiting on yours?
Oh, yeah, we'll get back to you about that. Yeah, I don't think you have all the paperwork in, so fuck
Remember that time you fucking led a river raid?
We don't care. We just want to stop.
We're greedy old white men.
Yeah. So I want to end with something that's a little more current about Obama. In 2014, actually got a letter from a girl in Massachusetts saying, women should be on money. Why aren't there are no women on money?
Excellent question.
Obama called it, quote, a pretty good idea.
Yeah, Obama, it is a pretty good idea.
So there's an effort, I think it was announced in 2016, that Tubman was going to be on the $20 bill by 2020 and replace fucking Andrew Jackson.
Oh.
But what happened in 2016? I don't know. I blacked out. Oh, yeah. We had asshole Cheeto Trump who stalled the move to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. Because he called here's what he called the move. If they were to do that, that would be just pure political correctness.
Excuse the fuck you.
I know. And he said that Jackson, he's talking about Andrew Jackson, quote, had a great history. And this pisses me off. Trump said that Harriet Tubman could be on the $2 bill instead. Who uses a fucking $2 bill?
Also, what the actual fuck? The $2 bill, that's like saying, oh, you want to stay in this 4-star hotel? Well, you can't. Why don't you go sleep in the porta-john across the street?
Yeah, thank you, though.
What a piece of shit.
So the Andrew Jackson, the president that he was defending so vigorously, was our nation's 7th president. He owned 95 slaves before he became president, and he brought 14 slaves to the White House with him. This was not Obama's original idea in 2014. This has been, for years, critics have wanted to take Andrew Jackson off the bill. Maybe they didn't say, put Harriet Tubman on the bill, but people have wanted to take Andrew Jackson off the $20 bill for a while, it seems like, because he's an asshole. He owned slaves, and of course, was responsible for the Trail of Tears, which killed so many Native Americans in this country. But so we get through the bad. We're going to end on a little bit of good. I got this information from an article from USA Today that was from January 26th, 2021. On Monday, quote, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said the administration was exploring ways to speed up that effort and that it's important the nation's currency reflect the history and diversity of our country, talking about putting Harriet Tubman on the bill. So we could see it happen under President Biden, but I won't hold my breath. But at least it's a possibility. Under Trump, it was never going to happen.
No, under Trump, it would have been laughable because why would Trump remove a terrible, violent racist from the money, because that's what he is.
No, because he loves it. And he actually had a huge ass picture of Andrew Jackson in the Oval Office. It's like, dude, that's not a president to look up to. You are so stupid. We all knew this in 2016. I'm boiling over. But
Yeah. But
anyway.
the point of this episode was strong Black women helping people, being selfless, and helping
despite
our country,
the odds.
Yeah, despite the odds, and helping our country through, again, one of our darkest times.
Yeah, and like I said, I think in a future episode about Black stories, we should do some current stories.
Yes.
But yeah, that's all I got. But I'm happy to have learned a little bit more about this fucking badass that, everybody knows her name, I would say, but do you know just how amazing and spectacular she was and how much good she did for our country? I hope that there are people out there who, like me, didn't know very much about her, and now you do.
Now you do.
And you know about, oh my gosh, what was her lady's name?
Henrietta Duterte.
Okay, yeah. She had there were more names in there than that.
She had so many names.
Yes, Henrietta.
Henrietta.
Our girl, Henrietta. Our lady, our woman.
Yes, and of course, Dr. Patricia Bath, blaster of eyeballs.
Love it. Love it all.
Yeah.
If you ever have any suggestions for topics for us to cover on our episodes, we are more than happy to get suggestions or get feedback. So email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com or send us a DM.
Oh, that was spicy. On our Instagram?
Yeah, they can send us a DM on our Instagram. I might read it.
And I might read it. You never
we might
know.
both read it.
We might both read it. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day that you're listening to this on. I hope you, Katelyn, have a wonderful rest of your birthday.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What a great way to spend my birthday with you, Soph, telling some bone stories. This last year was not what I thought it would be, but the podcast is a big part of why I got through the last year. So hoping that this year will be better.
Yeah. And, it's only up from here.
That's right. Please. Mercy, please.
Yes. No, I'm done. I'm chapped.
Yeah. I just wanted to end by saying I got myself a little tiny 8-inch German chocolate cake. And if I can find a candle, I'm going to blow a little candle out and eat my tiny, tiny cake. That's
a little birthday cake for one. Well, that sounds amazing to me. Send me pictures.
I might. It might just be too sad to share.
Oh man. But anyway, I think as far as quarantine birthdays go, a snowstorm and a tiny German chocolate cake.
I can't complain. I'm fine. I'm fine. Okay.
All right.
We gotta end this. I gotta just say it.
All right.
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage. We love you. Bye.
Bon voyage.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
at Chubby Scrubby on Twitter
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
at Camilla Strader on Instagram
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
DM.